Hello, everyone. This is Jennifer Wilson with the Illinois State Water Survey. You are here for advanced tips and tricks for social media. We'll let folks give a few more minutes, a few more seconds just to get logged on here, and then we will get in. You can familiarize yourself with the GoToWebinar panel if you are using that for the first time, and I just want to welcome you to today's webinar. All right, let's jump in. So the first thing, of course, I know many of you are interested in continuing education credits, whether you're here from wateroperator.org or our sister program, privatewellclass.org. You can request a certificate by emailing info@wateroperator.org, and we will verify your attendance here and send that off to you. We've requested 1.5 CEs for NEHA credential holders. We've not requested any continuing education units for drinking water operator credential holders, but we will provide that certificate. Additionally, we will also provide a recording on YouTube, but we can't provide a certificate for that because we can't verify that you watched it. But those of you here live today, thank you. And if you have any questions about continuing education, just email that address, info@wateroperator.org, and we will help you out. All right, so if at any time you have any questions, please enter those in the questions box. I will answer those at the end. All those questions that you submitted in advance, I have worked into the presentation either in the middle or I have included some at the end as well. Thank you so much for submitting those. It really helps me tailor the presentation to what you're interested in. And of course, please don't hesitate to jump in at any time and submit those questions so that we can have a good conversation at the end of the broadcast. This is expected to run about 90 minutes. I understand some of you may need to leave at the top of the hour, but we do run that long because there's a lot of great content here, and we do like to make sure we have enough time for all of your questions. So again, my name is Jennifer Wilson. I'm the communications coordinator for wateroperator.org and privatewellclass.org. I've been in drinking water in one way or another since 2004, and I've been on social media full force since 2008. I just got my notification recently of my anniversary of joining Facebook. That was my first social media account, and I am looking forward to sharing with you today everything that I've learned since that time. So one of the most common questions that we get is really, what qualifies you and your program to share this information? So how and why does your organization, us at the Illinois State Water Survey, and within our two particular programs, how do you use social media? So I wanted to get started there. So we use Twitter mostly for peer-to-peer communications, other professionals in the industry. So for private well class, that's environmental health professionals, well professionals, contractors, drillers. And then for wateroperator.org, that's our regulators, TA providers, both at multiple levels, federal agencies. But we're really feeling like on Twitter, we connect best and most efficiently with those who are like us, and we love to learn from each other and share each other's content. And then on Facebook, we really consider that the public. And I'm going to be using this phrase again and again throughout the presentation because it's an important perspective to have, is depending on who you are, where you sit within an organization or within an agency, your public might be different. If you're at a small local utility, then your public is the consumers of your drinking water. But if you are a state regulator, then your public are the operators. So it's important to always have that in mind and to think about where your people are showing up. And that's where you need to be on social media. And we'll be talking about that throughout the presentation. So Facebook is that more casual conversation where our public shows up. So for private well class, it is well owners and well users. And for water operator, it's operators, utility managers, and board members. And so you'll see a lot of this differentiation throughout the presentation. So just really keep that in mind as we go forward. We do have a LinkedIn organization page for wateroperator.org, and that's both kind of a peer-to-peer and the public because it is, very much a professional networking, and because so much of our public audience are also professionals. So, why are we on social media to start with? Number one, we want to reach new audiences with all of our programs. Um, Social media is not the only way we do that. Email is a really big component of what we do. Many of you are probably on this webinar because you received an email from us. Either you subscribed to our newsletter or you took one of our classes, you attended a webinar in the past. And so we find email to be the most effective because it's a very direct form of communication. But social media is an important part of that because it reminds people we exist, and that overall awareness helps them to then open up those emails when they see them in their inbox. We're also on social media to amplify our partners' voices and their activities. So much of what we do, because we do have national scale programs, we recognize that we don't know everything, and there are differences across the country, whether you're talking about drinking water regulations or groundwater issues and local groundwater water quality issues. And so it's important that we connect people with their local sources of information that can provide the best source of support that they need. And of course, we also like to stay up on industry news and trends to see what's going on, to make sure that we're, doing our best work by staying aware of what's going on out there. And not only what are the problems, but then giving us more information to figure out how can we uniquely help. And I think that's part of this whole idea of personalization and really thinking about who am I in the organization? Who is my organization? Who do we serve? And what is our unique role? We all can't do everything. And that's why, having all these partners is so important, because we all have a unique, specific role to play. And when you're talking about social media and creating your strategy, that's how you can really flesh that out and define that. And that can even trickle down back to your organization. If you are presenting yourself in a certain way on social media, your organization can really see that reflected and continue to back that up, if you will. So what are some of the evaluation metrics that you use to show engagement, to demonstrate behavior change, to really show that this is all worth it? Now, we'll have a whole section on metrics going on, but I wanted to just give you a teaser of some of the metrics that we use. So of course, we're looking at people who follow our account, how far, how much reach do our posts get, video views, website visits, attendees in our webinars, enrollments in classes. People who fill out evaluations, not only how many evaluations and what they say, and then those follow-up things, how many brochures are requested, how many questions were received. And then, if we do a customer satisfaction survey, what are people saying about us? So we're looking at all sources of information to see how is social media affecting our overall program. Now, you may be here today because you feel a little bit like this about social media. And I don't want you to feel like this. I don't want you to feel intimidated. I want you to develop new confidence and feel like that the more you practice and the more confident and comfortable you'll be, but that you have new tools to start moving forward with greater ease. So I do want to do a poll real quick, and I'll go ahead and launch that here. I want to get a sense of your experience level. So are you a total beginner? Do you know the basics? Are you pretty experienced and want to learn more? Or do you feel like you could probably co-host this webinar with me? If so, I'd like to talk to you. All right, the responses are coming in. We'll let it get up to about 70% or so of you voting. And I love how every time I do this presentation, the percentages are just a little bit different. All right. Looks like the votes are slowing down. Thank you. Close that poll and share the results. So 17% say they're a total beginner, 50% just know the basics. Maybe you have a personal Facebook account. Maybe you signed up for Twitter a long time ago. Maybe, tweeted some sports scores and never did anything again. 32% are pretty experienced and 1% could co-host the webinar with me. So one thing I want you to know, this is that 102 level webinar. We do have a 101 level webinar. I imagine we're going to be doing that again after the first of the year. We don't have one on the schedule right yet. But if you are in need of that kind of some of that more basic information, I can also point you to a recording of a previous version of that. Just let us know and send an email to info@wateroperator.org, and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction. All right, hide that poll and we'll go on. All right, So I think one of the things that I talk about in that webinar and will throughout this one is that the whole point of social media is to continue to build public trust. In some cases, you may, depending on what's been going on in your area, you may need to rebuild public trust. When there's things that go on in one community around the country, we know how much that affects the national conversation about what's going on in water. And, the public doesn't necessarily understand or trust your organization. If you're in a government position, which many of you are at some capacity, there's some certain amount of distrust for the government and people that are trying to tell you what to do, if you will. So I think the more you can be on social media as a human, the more you be helpful and friendly and responsive, the more that you can continue to grow that trust so that when there is a situation, people know they can trust you for accurate, timely information, and they will go to you for that so that they can see a resolution. Okay, so let's define more who is the public. So this is your core organization, the core audience your organization serves. So if you're a public water system, that is your customers. If you're a local health department, it's your local community members. If you are a state regulatory agency, it's those people that you regulate. Is it the water and wastewater systems? Is it health departments? If you're a TA provider, it's also often water and wastewater systems, but it's also community leaders, the people you're bringing together to put together funding applications and to make these projects happen. So your public is going to be really, really different. And you have to, again, think about where they are showing up on social media. And throughout this presentation, I'll share with you some strategies to find out where they are. All right, so in this presentation today, we're going to cover these four. We may have a brief conversation of YouTube here and there, and I'm happy to answer any questions about YouTube as well. YouTube's kind of one of those content platforms / social media. It's a little bit different than some of these other ones. But in terms of Facebook, that really is a very public facing, people have accounts there to see pictures of their grandkids and keep up with friends. They're not typically there for work purposes. It's pretty easy to use. There's billions of accounts around the world, but the audience does expect a certain type of content. So if you're acting in a more professional capacity, you may not get the same amount of reach there, say in comparison to how you would on LinkedIn, because people are expecting a certain type of content there. Twitter is probably the broadest of all the platforms. Your public is there, your community members are there, your peers are also there. And I mentioned earlier that we find the most success communicating with our peers on Twitter. It's very fast paced. You can gain visibility by using hashtags. We'll talk more about hashtag strategy, but you are limited to that 280 characters. It was recently doubled a couple years ago from 140. And sometimes the messages can get lost in the noise. So it can feel maybe a little more fruitless, if you will, because Twitter is so fast paced. And I mean, Facebook to a certain extent can feel that way as well. So LinkedIn's a little bit different because it's inherently this professional environment. So that's where you're going to be looking for future staff members, whether they're near-term hires or maybe the next generation, where you're going to be connecting with other peers in your industry. And this is really your work content, which we're all here in a professional capacity. It's going to match the purpose of the platform, which is good. But not everybody logs into LinkedIn. Maybe even if they have an account there, not everybody has a habit of just hanging out there and checking in. People may do so more when they're on the job market looking to make a change. And of course, there is a small portion of people who do hang out there regularly, but it's not the water cooler in the same way that Facebook is. And then Instagram. Instagram is a little bit different. It's currently owned by Facebook, but it wasn't created by Facebook. It very much is a public-facing platform. But because it is photo focused, it very much helps you humanize the organization. And I'll mention that again and again, because that's one of the biggest and most important ways to build trust is to put human faces behind it, the faces of people in your organization and those of the people that you serve. But you do, of course, need like photo, video, or other type of multimedia assets or even graphics to make that work. And not everyone has the confidence or the ability to do that, or it may not make sense depending on what you do. Now, there's lots of really fun ways you can to make that work. I don't have any examples here. I think that'd be actually a fun thing to add to this conversation of how do you make to be blunt, non-sexy topics more interesting in a visual way. And we could do a whole webinar just on that topic. All right, so the key takeaways that I want to preface you with as we get into each of these modules is one is that I want you to feel like you can create content with more confidence, to feel like you know what you're doing, and then to also ensure that social media is worth your time. And if you're in a position, as many of us are, to be able to justify that time to others, that I give you some tools to do that so that you can have metrics to share to say, hey, this is what we know, we're thinking this is working, or we're learning from what's not working, and here's how we're improving. And I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so our first section is planning your content. I think this can be sometimes overlooked. Social media tends to be more on the fly, and you may be in a more reactive mode. And if you're in a more proactive mode, as with all things that we do as professionals, planning your social media content can really benefit you, and I'll share some of the reasons why. So we're going to be kind of talking about the beginner versus advanced perspectives throughout the presentation. So in terms of planning, a beginner maybe would post when they remember, maybe post a lot while they're into it, have a little extra time for a while. Maybe while they're at a conference, they feel that relief of being away from the office, they post, and then they stop when things get busy again. An advanced practitioner of social media really thinks ahead so that their posts can be timely and staggered and more thorough, like totally fleshed out with visuals and tags and links. But they're also, when you do this, those advanced practitioners are more nimble because they can have content at the ready. They have built that trust so that they can be ready to go when there's a cancellation of an event, if there's an outage or a line break, or there's other world events that require particular sensitivity to their content. If things are planned out, they can then shift gears to make sure that they're communicating in the right ways. So an editorial calendar is one of the things that I recommend for making sure that you are planning out. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It could just be one calendar that everyone can access. Or if you're just the only social media person in your organization, then it's a calendar that you're using. And it could just be your Google Calendar or your Outlook calendar, whatever calendar you use. You could use spreadsheets. And then you could also use tools like Asana, Trello, or Notion, which are project management tools. And I know many of you may have used other project management tools too. So whatever you use to keep track of what to do, try to see how you might be able to bring social media into that so that you can plan things out into the future. So here's an example of one of our editorial calendars for wateroperator.org. This is just showing, you can see on the Mondays there, we have newsletters going out. On Wednesdays and Fridays, we have blog posts going out. We do feature videos every Friday. And so we plan everything out, and then all of these things are going to have social media content surrounding it. And it's really helpful to have this visual so that, particularly if you're working in a team, you're not posting over one another. And this, of course, can get, much more detailed with multiple posts per day and everything like that. But just this idea of having a place to put your plans so that you can implement them, stay on track, and then make sure everyone is aware of what's going on. So another common question that we get is, how do you avoid audience burnout? And when this question was initially asked to me, I think they're talking about, I don't want my audience to be annoyed with me because I'm posting too often. Now, we've all heard things, particularly about reach on Facebook. What's the point of having a Facebook page anymore if you don't reach all the people that follow you? Well, the problem is Facebook has to do that because there's so much content created, and really all the platforms do this. There's so much content created today, they can't possibly show everything to everyone. It just doesn't work. So they have to use an algorithm to prioritize what they think you most likely want to see or need to see. But because of that, there's much lower risk of any kind of audience burnout or feeling like you're flooding their feed, because it's most likely they're not seeing everything you post anyway. And so while you can look at this as a negative, it also means that you have another opportunity. You can repeat yourself even more, and you're not going to know anyone because they'll see it at the right time when they need to. So I just want to assure you that you can't I'm not going to say you can't ever post too much, but that's not something you really need to worry about. I'll emphasize again and again here, it's really about consistency and just posting regularly so your audience knows that, you know, you're there, you're reliable, and you're a resource that they can trust. Another common question is, how do you feel about using stock images, GIFs, and memes? So in terms of things that are more on the humorous side, of course, we have to be super, super sensitive and make sure there's no possibility of this offending anyone in the entire world. So, you know, even if you're the only social media person, get 2 or 3 people to vet that and make sure that you are being sensitive and it is universally funny and fairly benign. In terms of stock images, I think they're appropriate in certain scenarios. They're good as a background, maybe if you're overlaying text or something else. But for the most part, because of this desire to humanize your organization and this the idea that we want to build trust, it's actually better to have an imperfect image that you took on your cell phone than it is to use a stock image, because people trust other humans, and if they see a photo that looks like a photo that they take, they're going to trust that. They're going to stop scrolling and they might look at it. Whereas I think stock images these days just get glanced over. It's like, oh, that's just marketing. So I think where they maybe had a stronger role on social media in the past, I think the trend is more towards more genuine, authentic content, even if that's a little bit more rough or imperfect. All right, so a couple of reasons why you want to schedule posts rather than just always posting on the fly. It helps you ensure that you're posting at the best time, which might be out of your office hours. We'll talk a little bit later about the metrics again, and often each of these tools will tell you when your audience is online, and it may not be when you're at work. So that's important to know. It helps you make sure you're staggering new content rather than just, you know, posting a whole bunch of things every morning when you kind of have that blocked off on your calendar. It also helps you collaborate with others. If you schedule things well out into the future, you can have others take a look, see if they have things to add in related content, or maybe even edit it. It also allows you to, particularly if you're using a tool, to more centralize your replies, so that if you are trying to manage keeping up with not just the posting but the responding, using a scheduling tool allows you to make sure that you can see all those response needs in one place. And of course, it allows you to spend more time listening. And we're going to talk a lot about listening today, because that's really how you understand where your people are and what they need. So there is native scheduling on Facebook and Twitter. That means you can schedule your posts in advance on both of those platforms. It gives you more control, but it's less centralized because you have to go to both of those. You cannot currently schedule on LinkedIn or Instagram, though, natively in those apps. There are tools that allow you to schedule for all those apps externally, though, and Hootsuite is one of those. So the free plan allows you 3 social accounts. You can do up to 30 scheduled posts with 1 user. Now, we actually use a free plan with our organization, and we just share that 1 user account among a small number of people. Because it's a small number, it works out just fine. Buffer is very similar, except they only allow 10 scheduled posts. They're very, very similar platforms. We personally use Hootsuite just because we've used it the longest, and I'll show you an example in a moment here. And then Edgar is a different type of social media tool, whereas Hootsuite and Buffer allow you to schedule out to the future, really centralize your social media usage. Edgar allows you to create a content library so that you can repost things in the future. Like, let's just say you're sharing a helpful tip or a factoid or a reminder about how to pay a bill, things that are what we call evergreen content that aren't time sensitive at all. You can have those in a content library, and then Edgar automatically shares those out on a schedule that you determine. So it works a little bit differently, but if you have the budget for it, I think it's about $40, $50 a month. It does allow you to do social media with less planning. It's just more kind of making sure you're feeding your content library and then also manually scheduling those time-sensitive posts in between. All right, so here's an example of Hootsuite. You can see it's column focused, and there's different tabs here for Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So we're able to monitor all 3 of those platforms in one place. You can see here we have our Twitter home feed, so that's the people we follow. You can see our own tweets. In this example here, I don't have any tweets scheduled, but you'd see them there if I did. And then you also see some columns for different things that we follow. One I think is a Twitter list, and the other one is the Water Wednesdays hashtag. And this can go, off to the side quite a bit. So you can create these different columns to be able to really see everything with a bird's eye view rather than clicking between screens. So it's really handy for that. All right, let's dive into this idea of having a listening strategy. One of my big fundamental points in my one-on-one webinar is about how social media is not broadcast, it's a conversation. It can sometimes feel like broadcast, but the whole point is to share information and hopefully get some sort of reaction in the form of likes, comments, shares, but also people taking action for the information that you're doing, whether it's, conserving water, paying their bill, whatever it is that you want them to do, attending a training, you want them to do something. And so it's that conversation. And it's also this opportunity to hear from the people you serve more directly than we do in a lot of other ways. So again, a beginner is really going to think social media is just this one-way output of information, but really it's this back and forth, and it helps you stay aware of issues and trends. And the advanced practitioner can use it to really discover where your audience is and what they're talking about, and also find new content to share. I think sometimes there's this misconception that you need to be this massive content creator and create all these images and posts and spend a lot of time writing things. And yes, there is certainly some of that, but you can learn by observing others who are doing it well. And you can also share other people's really awesome content and that not only gives you something to post on your feed, but celebrates and amplifies that other organization as well. All right. So how do you connect to that right audience? Well, you do that through listening by seeing what resonates and looking at your metrics. And again, I'll talk about that in a minute. And it's really about, excuse me, I'm having a lapse of memory here. It's just really about understanding who your public is or who your audience is that you want to reach, and really paying attention to what's resonating with them and then continuing to tweak what you're doing to meet that. So listening goes beyond just following accounts. And really that's the fundamental though, is you want to make sure that you're not just, following 0 people and putting messages out there. That would just be broadcast. You want to make sure you're following others to see what's going on and to develop partnerships and, act as you would in the human world on the online as well. You can create lists with Twitter. This is what you see in the image here. We have a number of different lists on our water operator account. We have, our partners in Illinois. We have other water industry colleagues. We have one of just, our friends, like other organizations that serve small rural communities. We have one for other, small communities who are on social media. And so we really try to look at these lists because they should be sharing similar types of content. So you can use lists as a way of seeing what the different spheres or subspheres of your industry, what people are talking about, who's talking to each other, and maybe learn about more who are some of the other players, kind of meeting new people and networking. You can also like pages as your page on Facebook. And I'll share an example in a second here of how that works. So if you think about being on Facebook, you're either friends with people or there's pages that you like. And you don't, if you could, excuse me, you can be on Facebook and like a page as your page and then create this custom feed of all the pages you like, which is great for sharing content and also learning about what's going on. So this is a really kind of underutilized tool. And again, I'll show you that in a second. You can also follow hashtags both on Twitter and Instagram. Seeing what's happening in a hashtag can kind of help you stay abreast of what's going on and, see who the players are. And there's also groups on LinkedIn. There's groups on Facebook as well. Those tend to be more on that personal side rather than professional. There's a ton of professional groups on LinkedIn that might be of interest to you to help you network and really see what people are talking about. And really this listening is monitoring what's going on, and you can use any of those tools that I mentioned to really get a sense of that. So here's those Twitter lists that I mentioned. You can see here, and I wanted to point out, each of these has different content because we're following different people on each of those lists. So you can see, what, our small community partners are talking about, what our Illinois partners are talking about, and really figure out how to personalize and nuance the conversation towards those different audiences. All right, so let's talk about liking pages as your page. It helps you curate a very relevant content feed for yourself and helps you engage as your organization, because not only can you like pages as your page, you can then comment on other pages as your page. So then it's kind of like your organization becomes friends with another one, and then all of a sudden you start commenting on each other's things, and that can only help everyone, because the more initial engagement a post gets, the more likely it is to reach more of your intended audience. So to do this, you want to go to any page that you want to follow, and you want to click the three dots on the right-hand side. And then you want to look for that link that says like as your page. So this is the first step, and that allows you to like organizations as your page rather than yourself. Because if you just hit that like button, you're going to like it as yourself, your personal account. So you want to go to the three dots and do like as your page. And then the second part here, you need to go to facebook.com/your page name, and you need to put in whatever your page's URL is there, /pages_feed, which will give you a custom feed, much like you see on the left here, of the content posted by the pages you like. This is probably the most helpful tip throughout this entire presentation, so make sure you jot this one down. Facebook has kind of hidden this. I hope they don't take it away completely, but for now you can get to it through this direct URL. So it's really, really handy, particularly if you're responsible for sharing content to your organization's Facebook page and you're having trouble finding new content to share and you end up creating most of your original content. This is an amazing way to find shareable content. All right, let's talk about hashtag listening. So it allows you to stay connected to breaking news. If something's going on, often some of the first posters will, if there isn't an existing hashtag that makes sense, they'll kind of define what the hashtag is for it. And then you can kind of see who's talking about that, what's going on. Your hashtags can be hyperlocal, or they can also help you understand a much broader context. So if you just, use the hashtag water, you're going to see the full breadth of everyone talking about water all around the world using that hashtag. You'll also see how, if you use a hashtag such as asset management, that there's a lot of different meanings for asset management, well beyond the water industry. And so it'll help you understand which hashtags are going to help you reach the right people. So always click on hashtags when you see them in posts to do a little investigating. It can be kind of fun to dig into which hashtags people are using within your sphere and which ones kind of reach the most people. All right, again, I just wanted to point back here to Hootsuite. We have that Water Wednesdays hashtag. That's one we found particularly helpful for kind of people in the water community. It goes beyond just hashtag water, but people who are engaged in sharing outreach and education information related to water in general. Yeah, and you can also look at some of our posts to see which hashtags we do. That's the number one tip I have in terms of kind of continuing to learn how to do this, is look at accounts that you trust, that you like what they post, their content is engaging and interesting. See what you can learn from that and how you can model that in your own work in terms of, the way they structure their sentences in their posts, what kind of images they post, what hashtags they use. You can learn a lot from others. Now, I'm not saying that any of us really know what we're doing, but I think that if you see a post that has a lot of engagement, obviously it's effective in some way. All right, let's talk about social SOPs. This is kind of one of the hot topics and something that we get questions a lot about, particularly of those of you who are in governmental organizations at the local level. So this can be kind of scary as well, because you don't want to have sticky situations. You want to make sure that everything that's being put out is representing your organization in a positive light. You don't want to deal with the people who post weird comments because those exist across the internet. And so by having something in place, it helps you kind of take away a little bit of the fear, and know how you're going to react, not if, but when these things do happen. So a beginner might not have any guidelines for their team, or if it's even themselves. There may be some blurred professional and personal boundaries sometimes. That can be a little dicey. They may post too much too frequently, or they may post that share conflicting information. I see this happen in organizations where there's multiple people who are allowed to post to one account, which is fine, but because they're not communicating or they don't have any practices in place, they may share information that's conflicting. They didn't realize, the program had changed or was canceled or something was different. They just knew they had to post about this, and so they did. And so the more that you can, work as a team and have practices in place, such as using tools that we've talked about, the more you can make sure that doesn't happen. And then the worst case is that, a beginner might have to have their posts removed by their supervisor, or realize that they made a mistake and have to remove them because they didn't really quite know what they were doing. So in contrast, that advanced practitioner and that advanced team, everyone's on the same page, using the same tools, and your organization, which is most important here, maintains that professional image and continues to build and grow that trust. So just the basics of what should be included in your standard operating procedures for your social media. What outlets you use and kind of how you use them, who's the audience for each of those outlets, and make sure you include those account credentials. This is so important for continuity of activity of, there's often turnover in every industry, and you want to make sure that someone else can step into your shoes, or maybe you get sick, particularly right now during the pandemic. We never know what's going to happen. You want to make sure someone can take over for you and has access to those accounts. So that's kind of the bare minimum. You also want to have some professional standards. Maybe your organization doesn't allow any memes or GIFs or anything that could even possibly considered humorous. That's something you're going to have to talk about and figure out what's right for you. I think humor can be used appropriately, but you do have to be careful, as I mentioned before. You also might want to use a copy style guide. Like how do you use punctuation in terms of how do you write AM and PM? Do you use AP style? We can get pretty nuanced here, but how do you reference your organization? Do you use acronyms? Do you write it out fully? Talking about what are the standards here, things we talk about all the time, and how do we write those? And at the basic, this could be 1 to 2 pages, or it could be much longer. I think it's important to just get started, start getting the very basics documented, and then as you develop a comfort level and develop more things that you do repeatedly, flesh that document out more. Now, it's also going to need to include some other things as well. So security and safety, of course, is very important when we're talking about critical infrastructure assets. And I think those who work more on the operations side or in management understand how important it is not to show maps or locations or talk about your preventative security measures. But those who are posting on social media may not be as in tune with all of those conversations. That's why it's important to have that in your SOP so that everyone is on the same page and know what are some things that are maybe not okay to post about because it does pose a security or safety issue. This can also include your policy on including faces of people. Let's say you do a lot of programming for the public. Is it okay to share pictures of people who attended your event? Did they sign a waiver at some point in the registration process? Or do you need to be sensitive and make sure you don't show faces of people who attended your programs? Maybe only show backs of heads or show only the presenter. So there can be some nuances that you need to talk about within your organization and with your manager, even if they're not involved in social media, to understand what's okay and what's not okay. And then we get into the even stickier situation. So how do you deal with comment replies, comment deletion? How do you deal with people who post things to your page kind of in an unsolicited way? All of these are things that you need to talk about within your organization, and it can be really, really challenging. The rule of thumb that I use in general is to keep something there if it can somehow help others, either stand alone or with my reply, Or can it build further trust, particularly if I do reply? So let's say somebody has a big complaint. The most proactive thing you can do is to reply to make sure that person feels heard, and to say what you're going to do next to address their complaint. And that could even be asking them, can you contact customer service, or can you let us know where we can contact you? Whatever the situation is, if you can help somebody or build further trust by your reply, it's usually best to leave it there, because then others may see that and be like, well, that's just a kind of a doofus guy making some complaints, but at least this organization is there for him. Or maybe it is a legitimate complaint. And then they're going to know, oh, it's okay. And they're here to help, and they're going to do what they can, if they can, to rectify the situation. So there's going to be those comments from, quote unquote, internet trolls. There's also going to be legitimate comments from people who are concerned about something. And if you can inform them to say maybe why they're incorrect, and of course, in an appropriate, professional, gentle way, or if you can build trust by further directing them, that's what I recommend doing. And it's also often because you may be in a situation where you're required to keep public records. So should you ever remove a comment? Maybe. You need to consider that opportunity, as I mentioned. Consider the platform that you're on. On Facebook, you can actually hide comments, so they'd still be there if you needed to retrieve them for a FOIA request in the future. But on other platforms, you would either have to leave it or delete it. This link here shows particularly for social media records policies in Illinois. I think if you just cut off the Illinois, it would show you things for any state. So I don't recommend this site in particular. This is actually a paid service for archiving your social media for public records purposes. But they have a really, really helpful resource in terms of sharing state-by-state regulations, as well as example social media policies within each state. So I recommend this as a resource to learn more and to start your search of understanding what you need to do if you don't already have these as part of your social media policy. Okay, let's dive more into the data here. I'm gonna take a sip of my drink here and remind you of this opportunity to go ahead and submit questions if you have them, and I'll be happy to answer those at the end. All right, so a beginner may be thinking about, what data is there? Or they only use data to self-congratulate themselves. Like, oh, I had a post, it had lots of, had lots of likes and comments. Okay, so what? It's great. Yes, you want your content to be engaging, but is it meeting the needs of your organization? Is it leading to the desired result? Is it building trust, or is it getting people to take some sort of behavior change? So the advanced practitioner, they know where to find analytics for each platform, because it's going to be tricky, and they're in the platforms regularly to know when those analytics have moved, because they're always moving things around. They stay aware of those metrics, and they track a subset of those, and they continually make adjustments and improvements on their behaviors of posting based on the data. I think this is the most important thing here, is that the data is not there to say you're good or bad. It's there to say, here's what you should do next. Either do more of this one thing, do less of this other thing, do more in this one place, or do less in this one place. So this is another common question. What is the best type of content for each social media platform? And I can't answer that for you. Only your data can answer that for you, for your content in your organization. Because you can maybe compare with some buddies in similar type of organizations to see how things may be going, but it's going to be different for every single person in every single organization, depending on who your audience is and who your public is. So we're going to dive into Facebook Insights and Twitter Analytics for our two examples, because those are the two biggest platforms. The analytics on the other sites are more developing. Instagram just kind of beefed theirs up a little bit more, but these are the ones you'll probably be looking at the most. So here is Facebook Insights, and both of these give kind of the high-level view. So this is the page summary for the last 28 days. You can see number of views, the number of page likes, your total post reach, your engagement. So this kind of gives you those top level statistics. Same for Twitter, except theirs gives a little bit different information. Theirs gives us top level statistics at the top, your total number of tweets, your tweet impressions, profile visits, your change in followers, but it actually also in this summary shares some of your top content as well. I like how Twitter organizes things by month. That's also helpful for us in our reporting because we report every quarter, but both platforms give you these kind of bird's eye view metrics that you can just pop into regularly to see if things are going one way or another. Now here's a comparison here of kind of the next level deep dive of the content. So you'll see Facebook on the left and Twitter on the right. And this is showing for each individual piece of content, what were the kind of key metrics, what was the reach, and how much engagement there was with each post. So you can see over here with Facebook, we had this one post that had, 3,300 reach. And this was a kind of a celebratory, like, yay for water operators type of post. And it just got a ton of shares, a lot of engagement. This is the very, this was in May of this year. So we were just trying to recognize the role of water operators and wastewater operators as essential workers during the pandemic. And so we were happy with that type of content. But this particular view here can show you which content is performing well and maybe which content is kind of a dud. Now, you can't always say it's the content itself. It could be the timing. It could be what else is going on in the world. Sometimes let's not take this year as an example. Sometimes there's really big news stories that come up rather than every day where it seems like there's a big news story that may drown out your type of social media content. But in general, you can use these two screens as a way to see which content is performing best, and then that helps you see how to do more of that. At the top here, this also gives you information about day of the week and time of the day that you're getting the most engagement. So this can be really helpful to know when to post, because that's another question we get is when best should I post? Well, that depends on your audience and the people following you. And as you gain followers over time, those stats may change. It may shift one way or another. So that's why it's important to always be looking at those metrics to shift your behavior from that. All right, now this is one of my favorite slides because this is so fascinating. These are our Facebook stats for wateroperator.org, and these are demographics based on gender and age range. And you can see, and the top is people who follow your page, and the bottom is people who engage with your page. So we can see that we have 66% male followers, but 61% of the people that engage with our page are female. So there could be lots of reasons for this, but this is an important, that's a really big flip. So is it because the person, one of my colleagues who creates content is also female? Is there something about the way she writes or the images that she creates that maybe appeal more to our female audience? Is it that women in general engage more on social media? We have to look into that stat to find out. So, we don't necessarily know all the reasons behind this, but it asks some really interesting questions that can feed into our behavior in the future. All right, so another question we also get is how can you evaluate effectiveness without easy access to these more detailed metrics? Maybe you haven't been keeping track very long, or maybe you're in a role where maybe you're contributing social media content, but you don't really have access to dig under the hood into the account. You can look at public metrics like reactions, likes, and hearts. You can look at comments and shares. On YouTube, you can look at video views, but you can also look at surrogate metrics. You can look at people who've enrolled in your class, people who've requested brochures or returned a test kit, or the number of complaints received. Now, while you can't tie these always directly to social media, you can use this as a surrogate to see, is there something changing and could that be because of social media? All right, so now you know more about metrics and where to look under the hood and what type of information you'll find there. What do you need to do now? You should start slow. It's really easy to get overwhelmed. There's a lot of data there. There's nuances. You can really look at things, slice and dice them, if you will, but just start slow, check regularly, monitor just a few key metrics, and then start trying different strategies. Identify something that you observe worked well, and then do more of that. See if that post works well, works in the same way, or try posting at a different time and see if those posts get more reach than other ones. So just try to just test different strategies, only change one variable at a time, and see what happens. And then, of course, you continue to grow by sharing your data with others, having conversations, asking questions about like, hey, what is it you see here in this data? I don't really understand it. Can we have a conversation about this? Whether that's with colleagues, you can come to us at any time, happy to help. But really just start slow and ease your way into this because it can be a lot. Okay, so another kind of tactic here that I want to share is this idea of a personal professional profile. Now, this may be totally familiar to some of you, but very, very new to others. So a beginner may only post as a kind of faceless organization with a logo only in this professional capacity. And you're always, saying we do this and we do that, but it's sometimes hard to humanize an organization. They may, and then that person may also only post their personal content, their personal beliefs in a personal capacity. So a personal professional profile gives you an outlet for your professional passion, and it's your choice to what degree you want to be personal on there, but allows you to have a place where you can wear your personal hat, put your face on your profile picture, and be a representative of your organization, but not be the organization account, if you will. Hopefully that makes sense. And this is a way for you to be on social media when social media is not in your job title or your job description. Maybe there's somebody else who already runs your organization's account. They're good. Maybe they're willing to, repost some of your things. But you having a personal professional profile allows you to show up as a professional, gain, notoriety for yourself and elevate your status while also representing your organization and building trust for it in a positive light. So these personal professional accounts are really for an individual, as I said. They share your unique perspective as a professional, but they always should still represent your organization's mission and value and amplify that that presence on the platform by creating more content, and it actually gives your organization more content to post. So here's an example here from Illinois Indiana Sea Grant. So they posted a number of years ago, we love our village, and hashtag FF, it stands for Follow Friday. Sometimes people may use the full Follow Friday hashtag, and they tagged their individuals that work for them that have personal professional accounts. So these are individuals who are showing up in their professional capacity on Twitter, but then that's content that this organization can then, share and amplify further. So it's a very it's a kind of a networked activity, but it's very allows more people to participate in social media, to really have a voice, and it really goes a long way to humanizing an organization. To say, yes, we have a logo, but we are of these people. So here's an example here of one of my friends, Molly Willozin. She's at Climate Molly on Twitter. She posts primarily climate information, but she also says, she's mommy to Annie and Zach. She's wife, daughter, sister, aunt, friend, weather nerd, and Packers fan. So you can see she's humanized this here with her personal likes. She's not sharing her political opinions, but she's, sharing her professional capacity as a climatologist while being a human on social media. And that humans resonate with other humans, and it's far more likely that she's going to get followers than maybe her organization. And so I think it can only amplify your organization by allowing this to happen. And if you're in a position of maybe wanting to create one of these, hopefully you can use my presentation to share why it's a good idea. Here's another example of George Hawkins. He was former CEO of DC Water. He's gone on to his own ventures, but I wanted to share this as an example of how when you have a personal professional profile, it can move with you throughout your career, even if you move from organization to organization, but allows you to maintain this presence as a professional in the industry as you go along in your career. So again, they're portable no matter where you work, they're still you. They're relatively safer organization. It's also why you maybe want to have rules about personal professional accounts in your standard operating procedures. What's okay and what's not. How personal can you get? But they are relatively safe because the idea is that your being a professional online and abiding by kind of those expectations that we would have culturally. And they provide tools for demonstrating the effectiveness and reach of social media. So let's say you're in a unique position where your organization doesn't really buy into it yet. They don't think it's worth the time. If you create an account, you start to engage, you gain followers, you gain reach, you can demonstrate how it can be effective and provide more, data and amplification for having your organization have a logoed account on social media. Of course, we always want to be careful, and this goes with no matter who you're posting under. You want to be really mindful of having multiple accounts, particularly on your phones, because sometimes apps can auto post, or you may be logged into one account and you didn't realize it. So there's this infamous example of EPA Water's account having an auto post from a social media game. And so this got a lot of news coverage. And so you just want to be careful. You want to just really make sure you know what account you're posting under. And if you are being multiple, let's say you're managing multiple accounts on one device, that you are being very careful. Can't underscore that enough. All right, so let's talk about talking more about which platform you should be on. And I mentioned a couple other ones here. So Twitter is always a good choice. LinkedIn is a great place for sharing more of your professional credentials and longer form posts. And again, we're talking about here about creating this personal professional profile. Medium is a good example or a good platform. If you are a writer, you love to write, you have a lot to say, and you want to say a lot about something in your industry, Medium could be a good place to do that. Facebook is not a good place to create a personal professional profile because it's actually against their terms of service to create multiple profiles. It's really viewed as a personal thing, and really one human is allowed to have one Facebook account. You could create a page, but it's not always the most effective way to really be a person, because a page is really an organization typically. Snapchat and TikTok may not be the best places for professional content. Instagram could work if you're in a really visual niche. Let's just say you're a water-related photographer. Instagram might be the best choice for you. Pinterest probably doesn't make a lot of sense either, but it could work in some circumstances if you create a lot of content that people like to share. It could be a way to do that as well. But really, I would say Twitter and LinkedIn are the places that make the most sense for creating this professional personal profile. All right, so when you do your profile, you want to make sure you use keywords in your description. Take some time, like 30 minutes, an hour, to really write a tight description to talk about who you are and what you do. Use keywords, use hashtags. You want to tag who you're affiliated with and any related accounts. So you can see, here's mine: Safe Water Advocate, co-host Tap Talk podcast, which is now very late 2020 / maybe early 2021 because of the pandemic. Web content strategist at Help for Small Water, at Help for Well Owners, at Water Survey. Tweets are my own. So there's a lot of content in that one little nugget there, but it really helps people understand who I am and how I fit within kind of the scheme of others. And you can see examples here of how others do the same with their own hashtags, adding in their personal hashtags, as well as their affiliated organizations. And so that advice I just gave you about setting up a little profile snippet there, that really goes the same for your organization account. You want to make it as rich and but also compact as you can by using keywords, hashtags, who you're affiliated with, like who's your next level organization, who's above you, and to tag any related accounts. You can see in this Indian Health Service one, they've also linked their privacy policy and comment policy there. And then for the Wake County one, they included their kind of overall hashtag. Wake is great. That's a good kind of branding thing, to have a hashtag that you want other people to use, to have that in your profile. Team accounts are another alternative to show up as a human on social media, but maybe not have the full obligation of having your own account. So it's kind of a hybrid model. It allows your group within an organization to shine. It provides, again, more content for that organization account at the top level, but it takes that focus and the pressure off an individual from really having to show up regularly on social media if you have, 2, 3, 4, 5 people contributing to one account as a team. And I know so many times we tend to be subdivided in our organizations, and maybe we have a team of people, but we're not at the organization account level yet. Maybe we have things to share and we're creating a lot of content. So I think the team account can be a really fun way of doing that. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about, we are dwindling down here. We're going to talk more about participating in conversations. This is kind of a more advanced listening strategy of really not just broadcasting, not just listening, but truly engaging. So a beginner might have that broadcasting focus and may actually be more narrow and niche focused. They may be really just in their bubble with some blinders on. But when you participate in conversations, it allows you to be more aware of a broader context and intersectional issues with your niche within the industry. And that's why, this webinar, we invited both our wateroperator.org and our private well class audiences, because we know there's so much overlap. Some of you are housed in the same agencies at the state level, some of you are at different agencies, but these conversations need to be had in a broader context because there's so much we can learn from each other. So, I just listed some of the intersectional issues here, but with private wells, water quality, and safe water, we have public health behavior change, community health at local and national scales, safe housing, particularly when it comes to lead, rural access issues, not only to, just rural access issues in general, but, not just water, but broadband and more. So there's all these different conversations that impact what you do specifically, and you can be a player in those by participating in conversations online. And also just helps you stay connected to groups that have similar interests, and audiences allow you to meet new people that maybe have a different perspective and can help you do your job better going forward. So Twitter chats is one of the best way to do that. Every Twitter chat will have a hashtag assigned to it. They're usually set for a specific time, just like this webinar. Be like Tuesday at 1 o'clock, we're going to have this Twitter chat. You go to this hashtag. They typically have questions. So they'll say Q1, here's the question, and then you want to reply. And you always want to say like Q1, and then here's my reply when you do that. Twitter chats, depending on how many people are participating, can go really fast. So while you can do it on the Twitter website, using a Twitter chat app like TChat can be really helpful to keeping up with that hashtag and seeing what other people are posting. They can be really, really fun, and they're a way to really provide a voice for your organization and help you network with others, but in a way that doesn't feel, spammy or over promotional. You're just participating in a conversation, but sharing your unique viewpoint as an organization or with your personal professional hat on. Awareness events can also do that. These typically are sometimes a day. They're often a week long. Sometimes they can be even longer campaigns. They also typically have a hashtag. Sometimes they even have social media graphics for you to share, like Septic Smart Week. That was in September. These type of events tend to be hosted by national organizations, sometimes regional or local ones. But they'll allow you to participate and share messages and try to get a particular message or a particular theme of messages out to a broader group of people. So those can be really helpful as well. All right. So yes, this is the time you need to start sending in your questions if you haven't yet. And I do have a couple additional questions here that were submitted in advance. All right, take a drink. How often should you post updates on social media? So I think you should have the answer to this by now, but my answer will be it's more important to be consistent over being abundant. If you're going to post twice a week, then post twice a week for as long as you can. If you can post daily, that's probably ideal because that's how the algorithms know that you're somebody who shows up on social media, and they're going to more likely give your posts a bit more reach. But I think consistency is much more important than quantity overall. How much info should your posts include? This is going to really vary depending on the platform, but I think it's important, just like those profile descriptions I was talking about, for your post to include, to be, engaging, and whether that way is more humorous or not, but engaging, to tag others, to use hashtags and include links. You want to have it kind of jam-packed, but also very succinct. So I shared this example in my 101 presentation. This is an Illinois section AWWA example where they posted a picture from a class, Skater 201 class today in Plainfield. And so I shared this example of how they could have made this particular post more engaging. What if Caesar's aqueducts were on SCADA? Rome wasn't built in a day, but you can learn the basics with instructor at Brutus, hashtag Plainfield, and then you could include the link to how to register. I think in general, the big thing they missed was including a link to register for future classes. You always want to make sure that if somebody has like, oh, that's great, but how does that affect me? You always want to go back to how can I make this useful for my audience? All right, how might you craft a social media campaign to not only attract attention, but also encourage more active participation in programs? So I think this also connects to this idea of making it about your user. It's not about you as the organization or the individual. You need to make your content about them. What's in it for me? How is this going to affect me, change my life, improve my life, make me happier or healthier, or help my family or my kids to be healthier. You need to really focus it on people and their experiences so that they can feel connected to that. Sometimes case studies or before and afters may be appropriate, but really always trying to answer what's in it for them or how can I take action in your posts. So I think you can attract attention by just being, personable, human. Graphics tend to help with that, but really to encourage more participation, they always need to understand what that fundamental, inherently selfish reasoning is going to be for them. And that's just human nature. And that's why people take action, is because they have a stake in it. People don't tend to do things because it's the right thing, if you will. All right, what do you need for a good landing page? So I wasn't quite sure the total context of this, but I wanted to share an example of one of our landing pages for Private Well class. This is a landing page to register for the webinar. Now we do have the webinar link, the registration page that GoToWebinar creates, but we like to create these landing pages to really be more actionable. In the green box at the top, we kind of have a title, have questions about your well, get the answers you need in our free webinar. To really, that's answering the what's in it for them, is you're going to get the answers you need. We have bullet pointed information. Try to avoid long blocks of text. You want to really make it easy to scan because people don't tend to read. Same with having the little next session in bold, help people scan to that so they know the next date. The register link is in a warm color, so anywhere from yellow to red. Red tends to be the best, but we like orange here, so we use that. But warmer, brighter colors tend to get better clicks than colors more like green, blue, or purple. That's statistically proven. We have some credibility here by showing the bio of our instructor. And so I think you just want to make sure your pages are well organized and make it really clear what you want somebody to do on that page. The only other way that in some scenarios I might not have a menu at the top, I tend to only recommend that for kind of true marketing situations where you really only want people to take one action. But in general, the rule of thumb in any kind of content, whether it's email or social media or a landing page, is you want to ask people to do one thing. A confused mind doesn't act, and people tend to, when we're scanning content, we want to know what is it that you want me to do and how do I do it. And so keeping it really succinct and organized, and using colors and visual cues will help you do that. I think that's it. All right, there's my personal information, and we're ready to go to the questions. All right. All right, Katie, does that look okay?
Yep, it looks good on this end.
Okay. What was that Facebook, your page name, pages link? Let me copy that down for you. I apologize, my PowerPoint has now gone poof. I think it was pages _ feed, but if my PowerPoint comes back up, I will jump back to that. It's being a little wonky here. Can you connect your Instagram and Facebook together now through Facebook and post to both at the same time using Facebook tools? Okay, I have posted to both from a tool called Planoly, which is what I personally use for Instagram. So I know you can do that. I know you can monitor your Instagram and Facebook comments and direct messages in one place using Facebook's own tools. I have not posted to both at the same time directly from one of those tools though. So I can't answer that question completely. In general, I don't recommend doing that. I do recommend repurposing content. You can share the same type of things, but you tend to want to share things slightly differently. So for example, you can't use a clickable link in an Instagram post. So you might want to use a short link that somebody can type in, like a bit.ly link, or just the shortest URL you could create to get somebody there. Or you can say link in bio. But for Facebook, you can include a full link. And so that's why I tend to post to one, copy the content, and then slightly reformat it for the other platform. How do you create your posts? We use Canva. Do you have any tips for creating the actual social media posts? I use Canva a lot myself. I also use PicMonkey sometimes. I really do love Canva, and I have the free version. It's met all of my needs for a number of years. Tips for creating the actual posts. Think about what is your intended result. Start with that. And if you're going to include a link, start with the link, figuring out what action you want somebody to take. You can create like themes throughout the week. Maybe, you always do like a fun fact Friday or something like that. So the more you can kind of create a blueprint for yourself to fill in the blanks, that can be helpful in generating content. Sourcing images from others, even if it was Septic Smart Week during one week, some of those social media graphics that they share are not going to all say Septic Smart Week on them. They're going to just be other things related to septic systems. So you may be able to use social media graphics that another organization created for an awareness campaign to support, particularly with like a helpful infographic to support your content that way as well. The 101 webinar does cover kind of, here's all the different broad categories of content, entertaining, educational, behind the scenes, and I share different examples of different types of posts that you can share. Please supply a link to beginner's recorded session. What I'll do is I'll make myself a note and I'll just send that out with the recording to this one. I'll just send out a link to the recording of the original one, the 101. How do you encourage coworkers to provide content when they view it as not my job? Even if you're not looking at yourself as a journalist, you can kind of interview them to help like prompt them, like, what do you think about this? And kind of use their words as the content. You can even, like, if they will allow you to, like, audio record them and then transcribe that to help you provide a basis for your content. That can be helpful. Like, particularly if you could say, like, hey, could you just send me an image, and then you craft the words around what you know. If you need them to vet it to make sure it's factually accurate, you can do that. We sometimes do that as well. Just to make sure that, is all of this correct? So, I think you can be a little sly about it and just really help engage people in the process. I think sometimes if you're in a meeting and maybe you're kind of taking note of what other people are doing in the organization, you can follow up with them later. Or sometimes even from what people say in the meeting, you can craft a post and say, like, hey, George, you said this in the meeting. I was thinking about posting this on social media. Can you send me like a map to go with this? So just whatever you can do to make it easy on them. As a public entity, how do you handle toxic followers? Well, you're going to need that. You're going to need a really clear policy. You're going to need to understand any requirements in your state for record keeping and whether that requires you to keep a copy or keep it public. And yeah, I can't advise you specifically. Sometimes this is something where you might need to bring in legal counsel to know if you can actually block people and if there's any risk to your organization for doing that. On most platforms, you can block individuals from posting comments, but you have to make sure that you're protected in doing so. All right, I'm gonna try to bring up my PowerPoint again to make sure I have that right link for you guys. Are there any more questions, Katie, or is that it?
That's all we had for now.
Okay. All right, guys, let me grab this link for you and bring in PowerPoint back up. Yes, this was correct. So facebook.com/your page name, and you're gonna need to go to your page and look at what the little URL slug is, and then /pages_feed to be able to go to see the pages that you like as a page. All right. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time today. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. If you do need continuing education credit, please send an email to info@wateroperator.org to request your certificate. Or if you have any other questions, we're happy to help. I hope you have a good rest of your week and take care.